Welcome to our show. All the good ones
are taken, aka at Goat.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast.
Okay, so I can just keep going, right?
Well, we chat.
Oh, yeah. I have to just keep going, right? Okay. Jesus Christ. So Megan, how was your week?
Man, this week's been long. I'm feeling really tired.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I do have a lot to say, but I can't even think about what to say.
Well, how was work? How was everything?
I'm up for a promotion.
Yay, congrats.
Thank you. And 5 of us applied internally, and we're supposed to find out tomorrow, which is Friday.
Ooh.
But I'm gonna be out of the office
because we're going on vacation.
Annual friends river trip.
Whoop whoop. Very exciting.
Very exciting. But so now I'm all nervous, and I sent an email.
Don't be nervous.
As I was leaving work, you can call my cell phone.
I'll be floating on the water, but you can reach me.
You can call me, beat me if you want to reach me.
Ayo, Kim Possible reference.
For all our 90s babies.
Love that girl.
Yeah, so we got assigned our first CASA case. And CASA is court-appointed special advocates. So you work advocating for abused and neglected children that are assigned to the county, advocating for them in the courtroom. And the cool thing about being a CASA is that we're completely volunteer and you're only assigned one case at a time. So you're the only one there that isn't getting anything from
out of the situation.
Right. You're not, it's not your job. You don't have a caseload. You're not getting paid. You're solely there to be the advocate for the children. Not to say that anyone else isn't there for the children, but it's cool to have someone and to be that person that is their only concern is
helping
not
the
to
kids.
Is helping the kids. It's not to get paid. It's not to get through a caseload. It's solely to support the children who gone through a really shitty situation that no one should have to deal with when they're that young. So me and my husband Shelby got assigned our first case.
Yay.
And we are very excited. We know it's going to be a difficult thing to do. We've gone through a lot of training with the county. But we are excited for this journey and, wish us luck.
Yay. I've already told y'all this, but I'm very proud of y'all. And I think it'll be very good. And those kids are very lucky to have y'all.
Thanks, Alex.
No problem.
So, Alex, how's your week been?
Oh, it's been a week. It's been hell.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't live in Texas and don't know, but it's been over 100 degrees almost every day. And for some reason, I somehow always move during the summer. Always, which is the worst possible time in Texas to move.
Semesters.
It is because I'd be going to college or coming home from college, etc., whatever. And so we've been moving. We started last Saturday, and I'm still not finished moving. And the drive is long. The heat is terrible. There's nothing worse about a move than having all your shit in disarray.
Yeah, and it's wet outside. It is so humid and sweaty. So trying to carry your shit, your arms are just wet. It's
jelly.
Slipping out. It's so gross.
It's terrible. Thankfully, we had a lot of help, so I'm very thankful to everyone that helped us.
Oh, good.
But Jesus Christ, never again. I told everyone, I was I'm gonna die in this apartment. I can't. Or I'm just gonna hire movers next time because I just cannot deal with that again. So hopefully we will get everything finished by tonight. That's a finger crossed situation. And then tomorrow we're heading on vacay, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Me too. I've been telling everyone it is our annual friend trip.
The annual!
I'm so excited to be on that river.
It's just such a good time. We have such a good time. I love going there. I love the river. You literally just bake in the sun and like drink yourself into oblivion. It's amazing. It's what I need right now.
Fantastic. But the good thing is you are not an hour away from me anymore.
Yes!
So
we're close.
We're close, and you don't have to, commute an hour every night when you come and record.
Yay! I'm very excited. I'm closer to work, closer to y'all folks, closer to like all my favorite grocery stores. It's just nice. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, you want to take us away on a quote for our book?
Yes, I will. On the surface, this should be good news. John Neville is gone forever. And long term, it probably is for the best. But short term, this is going to mean a flurry of interest, a shattering of their hard-won illusion of normalcy. Just when she and Will should be concentrating on the new life they are bringing into the world, not thinking about the one that they both saw snuffed out. Bada bing, bada boom.
And per usual, we have our one-sentence synopsis that's somewhat boring and then reinvent it with ChatGPT. So our original sentence is 10 years after the murder of her best friend and college roommate, the soon-to-be mother has doubts and reinvestigates the past. But ChatGPT, the real MVP, comes up with 10 years after the tragic murder of her beloved best friend and college roommate, the expectant mother finds herself grappling with lingering doubts, prompting a relentless pursuit to reinvestigate the haunting past.
That's how Ware wanted it to come on.
Yeah, she really did. All right, and this is Goodreads' one sentence. The #1 New York Times bestselling author of One by One returns with an unputdownable mystery following a woman on the search for answers a decade after her friend's murder.
Dun, dun, dun.
Alex, hit us up with that summary.
I will do that. April Clark Cliveden was the first person Hannah Jones met at Oxford. Vivacious, bright, occasionally vicious, and the ultimate it girl, she quickly pulled Hannah into her dazzling orbit. Together they developed a group of devoted and inseparable friends, Will, Hugh, Ryan, and Emily, during their first term. By the end of the second, April was dead. Now, a decade later, Hannah and Will are expecting their first child, and the man convicted of killing April, former Oxford porter John Neville, has died in prison. Relieved to have finally put the past behind her, Hannah's world is rocked when a young journalist comes knocking and presents new evidence that Neville may have been innocent. As Hannah reconnects with old friends and delves deeper into the mystery of April's death, she realizes that the friends she thought she knew all have something to hide, including a murder.
Great job, Alex.
No.
So a little bit more about the book. It has 3.88 stars on Goodreads. It was a Goodreads nominee for Best Mystery and Thriller for 2022, and it was a Book of the Month pick, and that's how I found out about it. A little bit more about Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is a white British woman and an international #1 bestseller. Her thrillers, In a Dark, Dark Wood, The Woman in Cabin 10, The Lying Game, The Death of Mrs. Westaway, The Turn of the Key, One by One, and...
What was funny?
There's 30 books!
I'm sitting here like shaking. I'm trying to keep my laughter in.
Why is there 30 books?
The short answer
Of mini books. Just saying that.
Many a book. Okay. And The It Girl have appeared on bestseller lists around the world, including the Sunday Times and New York Times. Her books have been optioned for both film and TV, and she is published in more than 40 languages. Ruth lives near Brighton with her family.
All right, Megan, so take it away with your thoughts.
Yeah, so a lot of this book takes place during their time at Oxford, and I know you spent a summer in London, right, Alex? You want to talk about that?
Yeah. I did last summer. Facing the fact that I was not going to be returning to Europe this summer was something to be reckoned with. But I had a lovely time. I was doing a study abroad, and we were based out of Grantham in the UK, and Grantham is just like an hour train ride north of London.
Nice. So that's
And
actually pretty close to Oxford, isn't it?
it is very close. And while I didn't go to Oxford, I wish I had, but I loved London. Like, that is a place I could see myself living. I love all things UK, and it was just a lovely time, especially when I was literally beating the heat of last summer. So
Absolutely.
it was lovely.
I have actually been to Oxford myself.
Oh.
So on my study abroad, so this was the first time I had ever been out of the country at all, was my sophomore year of college. I did a like 7-country tour with like 80 other students, and we stopped at different companies and just different things like throughout like 7 different countries. It was really, really honestly a opportunity of a lifetime. But the first place that we went was Oxford. Like right off of the plane, we got on a train or a bus and went to Oxford. So it was like essentially the first place I'd ever been outside of the US.
That's awesome. And so fitting.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, there were like the Lion and the Eagle pub that's mentioned. That's a very famous pub that like Shakespeare and a bunch of people have rumored to, maybe not Shakespeare, but a lot of people who are famous
people. Yeah.
Were rumored to have, stopped at and spent time there. So that was cool. Pelham itself, the college of this book doesn't exist, but we got to see a bunch of different colleges there. So for listeners who are from the US and might not know, the colleges, how they do it, at least at Oxford and some other universities, is that you have like the giant university, and then within that you have a bunch of different colleges. Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of like known for different things. So you can kind of view it as like a fraternity or sorority, but it's more like of an academic like acceptance.
Yeah.
So like one college,
like specialty.
Yeah. So one university can have 20 colleges kind of thing. So
yeah, it's very interesting. Oxford's a very old place.
It is. I got to take a couple pictures with the tree that Draco Malfoy falls out of. I would actually like to read his memoir, though.
Draco's memoir?
Tom Felton's.
I was like
Draco's memoir.
Where can I read it?
No, Tom Felton's memoir. It's a cute little picture of him with the wand, and he's holding it up with his head, like he's like this, but with the wand. So this book alternates between concurrent timelines, so it's differentiated between like the before chapters and the after chapters, referring to anything leading up to the murder as before, and then 10 years after as after for the murder of April. For clarity's sake, we're just combining a couple of the chapters, so it's supposed to be like every other, like before, after, throughout the whole book, but just to make it more concise, I'm not going to do a summary of every single chapter, so we're combining some plots, so it might be a little bit out of order. And speaking of, we're doing it a little bit different. We're actually having kind of a rough outline instead of just like going off of whatever comes to our mind. So hopefully it works out. Let us know what you think. Only nice things, please.
But constructive criticism. We
always
accept
welcome.
That.
Always welcome.
Of course.
But before we start, I wanted to talk to you, Alex, about your thoughts on the third person narrative. I personally would have found this book a lot more compelling if it was in Hannah's like first person narrative, but I just thought like it was so impersonal. I feel like though you have to be very, very good at being an author to do a third person or British.
Yeah.
Typically British people do it a lot.
What's a third person?
It's like she, like.
Okay. Instead of I, it's she.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like Hannah. Having everything from like Hannah saying I, like having it from like Hannah's point of view.
Gotcha.
We did have it from her point of view. It was just like
disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have much to say about this book, but I agree. I did feel like the characters weren't as connected to each other or the audience as well. Especially in like a mystery thriller novel, like you don't necessarily have to be like super connected to the characters, but you want to have invested interest in the character and their story. And so I felt that was a little hard as the reader in this book.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it feels like a play.
It does.
And maybe that was the intention.
Because there is like a theme of like theater and
right, and Oxford and like artsy. So it could have been that's what she was going for. She wanted it to make it feel like a play, but ultimately I didn't think it conveyed that very well.
No, because I feel like if that was her goal, then she could have done it completely different.
Yeah. AKA. Better.
So, AKA a lot better. I mean, what?
Don't sue us.
Don't sue us, Ruth Ware. I mean, what did you think of Hannah specifically?
I thought she was just a very average main character, which is usually fine. I just didn't really care about her. What about you?
She annoyed me.
Yeah.
She annoyed the fuck out of me. I don't know what it was. I was trying to like flip, because I read this book like for the past couple weeks, but then because of the move, like I literally binge read it last night, like 3/4 of the book probably. And there was something in the beginning that just really bothered me about her. And I think it's because she was written as like really contrarian. Like she's so self-conscious and she like can't make a decision. And I was like, homegirl, please. And there was a lot of like useless detail in that also, like that had really nothing to do with the story or like the concept of Hannah's role and the other characters and in the story in general. And so I was just slightly annoyed by that. However, to give sweet Hannah credit, the girl's been through a lot. She has been traumatized, as we will get into. So I'll just leave it at that for Hannah.
Yeah, so I'll start with the prologue. The book opens with our main character, Hannah. She's walking into her shared living space with her roommate, April, and she finds April, like, sprawled out on the floor dead. She doesn't remember anything after that, and she even wonders, you know, if what she actually saw is real or if it's just kind of what was fed to her, like, from the police. So like I mentioned, this book kind of goes back and forth between timelines. So now we're moving, 10 years in the future or current day, I guess. After the murder of her roommate, Hannah ends up dropping out of college and she never goes back to Oxford. And she finds a job at a bookstore. She always wanted to work with books. She originally wanted to be an editor. So she found that working in a bookstore was something she could do with books, but without a college education. One quote that I really liked. There were a lot of good quotes about books in this, I will say. But she's talking about her marriage, and this is page 115, so I know it's kind of like in the middle, but I was trying to find a good place to put it, and I think right here is good.
Yeah.
But Hannah says, Hannah has never understood people who get married at their college chapel. But the library, yes. If she could have married Will in the Pelham Library, that she could imagine. And the deep, reverential quiet surrounded by all that humankind has ever known about love. Every novel, every poem, every word. And I thought that was really beautiful. I really liked that.
That is beautiful. That was probably one of the most memorable quotes, for me at least, from the book.
Yeah.
So where's got that going for her?
She spent a lot of time after the murder feeling lonely, which leads to my favorite quote of the book, which is, "You are never alone in a room filled with 1,000 books." And once Will graduates college, he finds Hannah and they start a life together. 10 years after the murder of Will's girlfriend and Hannah's best friend, they're married and pregnant, which is real weird. So she gets the call from her mom that John Neville, April's murderer, has died of a heart attack in prison. When she gets home from work, she tells Will about Neville's death, and he responds, "Good." From the beginning, to me, it seemed that Ware was setting up Will to be the murderer. What do you think? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it just made sense because we knew
trope.
from the beginning. Yeah, we knew from the beginning that Will and April were together at one point, and then somehow he and Hannah get together. And it even says in the book, like, a large percentage of murders happen via a partner. And so it was like, oh, like, it's probably Will. And now she's pregnant and stuck with this murderer. Like, that's how it was kind of going. But to be honest, at the beginning, I was like, I don't really know who the fuck it is. Like, I had no strong feelings other than Will, like, possibly being the murderer. And I don't like their relationship. Him and Hannah's relationship.
I think Will was the only character that I actually kind of liked in this.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Will's...
Oh, okay, good. I thought you were saying you didn't like Will.
No, I'm saying, like, I did not like
can't.
how they ended up.
Yeah, well,
It's just giving me an
weird.
icky feeling. Like, I was like, I don't know, just... Because, I mean, until we get to the end of the book, like, you're literally thinking that, like, after April died, Will immediately was just like, okay, well, next best thing, you know? We don't really find out until later that, like, he actually was starting to develop feelings for Hannah. And so at first, you're like, oh my God, like... She just accepted this. Like, he was looking for a rebound. She was like, sign me up. And, like, I just didn't like the optics of it, especially when her best friend was April and April was murdered. So it just seemed very, like, bleh to me.
It is weird. I will say I think it's a little bit okay because it wasn't like they got together right after.
No, they
like,
didn't.
It was like
They
2
didn't.
years after.
Yeah, it was years after. And it was made clear later in the book that there were things developing before April died.
Yes.
So after I found that out, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a little bit different. But even in the beginning, like, Ware kind of, like, puts in these, like, ambiguous statements, like, oh, well, was it the right person at the right time? Like, we weren't really sure. And, like, what do you mean? You're having a child together now. Like, or, like, what happened if April wouldn't have died? Like, you know, it's just kind of like, blah.
It is.
Anyway, please continue.
So going back in time, this is kind of like we're finding this out as the same time as we're finding out what's currently happening. So we flash back to the past. So we start with move-in day at Oxford and the fictional college of Pelham, where we meet April for the first time. It's a very weird introduction because April is just like sitting on the couch while she has like a hired man in her room unpacking all of her shit. And so the hired help leaves a present from her parents on the windowsill. And I think some of these quotes kind of introduce April to us very well at the very beginning of the book. So this is like pages 14 and 15. The box isn't Tiffany, which is a bad start.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he signed it himself at least, one up from my birthday card, which was in his secretary's writing. And, well, it's not chilled, but it's Dom Perignon at least.
Whoop.
So how did you think about being introduced to April for the first time?
Well, I definitely let out like a long sigh. Like I was like, ugh, here we go.
Yeah.
I mean, the title of the book is The It Girl.
Yeah.
So whatever comes to mind is essentially what April is. Okay, when you read that title. And like Hannah is the complete opposite. She came from like a normal town in the UK. She came from like not humble beginnings, but like definitely not this wealthy aristocrat-esque person lineage. Mm-hmm. And so just I was like feeling for Hannah. I was like, oh, Hannah, buckle up. Like I was like,
oh yeah.
Before I knew they were become best friends, I was like, oh Lord, like
yeah.
I don't know. I was concerned for Hannah.
I would be nervous if I like walked in.
There's this man just putting your stuff away. Hannah's got like one humble suitcase,
right?
that, like, which is not practical, by the way. Like, ain't no way you're going to college at Oxford away from home with just one suitcase. But like, and I think Ware did that.
Mom was coming up with the other suitcases, but
what, the other two suitcases that Hannah owns. And I mean, I think Ware did that, mentioned that specifically to paint a contrast between Hannah and April. And I mean, from the very beginning, like
couldn't be more different.
Couldn't be more different. So interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. So they cheers with their nice new bottle of Dom Perignon and head down to lunch, where we meet the rest of the friend group. So April immediately sees Will, which is now Hannah's husband. and Hugh, and Will and Hugh were best friends, and they all know each other from like different prep schools in the same area. And Ryan is there too. He's on the same hall as Will and Hugh, so he tagged along with lunch. And then Emily just happens to be sitting next to them. And April and Hannah just invite them up to their room where they drink champagne and play strip poker, which, what a way to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's like college experience, though.
That's
That's how
true.
I felt like, I mean, not that I was playing strip poker like on my first week, but I mean,
Just the second week.
just maybe the second week. Good times. But like, I feel like when you enter college, like, it's just such a whirlwind. Like, you're meeting so many new people all at once. Like, you're figuring out like who your friends are going to be. You're figuring out like location wise where the fuck to go, and
Oh,
like,
yeah.
not to mention like handling your classes and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, would I start my first week out or first night out with strip poker? No, I don't think so. But that's just the type of girly that April is. So
That's true.
there we go. And maybe they do it differently in the UK, but
I don't know.
they're having fun.
Have you ever played strip poker?
No,
Me neither.
I would never sign myself up for that.
I like kind of want to now.
Unless I'm like, unless. We'll save that for later.
Oh, I'm finding that out this weekend.
Tomorrow night.
I'll bring a deck of cards.
Oh.
But so Hugh doesn't want to play strip poker. He's kind of the nerdy one with the glasses and kind of like gawky. And he's like, no, I don't want to play. And April says, shut up, sit down. No one wants to hear it. And this is my kind of first thought of like, you.
Really?
Interesting. Yeah, immediately.
Oh, immediately. I was like, I don't know. I got bad vibes from Hugh, but not for the reasons that you probably did.
I like literally I thought he did it like from the beginning.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm like looking back, obviously it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, of course, the motive was there. Like,
Yeah. We'll get to it at the end, but like I sincerely was mad that she was making like, because I got to the end and was like, Will. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, it was obviously Hugh. And then
Well,
it was
see,
Hugh.
at this point, I was still on the Will train. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, Will did it. Like,
I wasn't.
or
I
a professor. I was like, it's either a professor,
Yeah.
or it's Will. I definitely didn't think it was the John Neville guy because that's too fucking easy.
No. She wouldn't feel bad.
No, she wouldn't feel bad about it. There wouldn't be a novel if it was John Neville.
Oh my God, someone should write one. Maybe Ruth Ware. Because
God, no. Where? Leave this story.
Leave
this
it in the
story
past.
where you left it, babe. Because, like, we barely got through this one. Okay.
Okay. So they're all essentially like naked almost. Like they're all like in their underwear. And Will saves Hannah from having to take off her like bra or underwear, even though he was the one who had the winning hand. So like even from the beginning, there's like this
There's
kind
a
of
current there.
chemistry.
Yep.
She goes back to her room to calm herself down. Everyone else leaves. And she like gets the balls to be like, I'm going to be a different person. This is college. I'm going to go like kiss Will or whatever. And so she opens the door and Will's still there.
But lo and behold,
He's making out with April.
surprise, surprise. Just the way that, like, I've met people like this in my life, and just the way, and at times, like, when I've been fluctuating between, like, my normal self and, like, my God complex.
We all do it.
Yeah. I'll be like, I don't know, you take charge in that situation. And I've known people like that. So it was not surprising because the way that April immediately, like, inserted herself at the lunch table, I was like, oh, look, it's you, like, type of thing. Like, she already had her sights set on Will immediately.
Oh, yeah.
So whether he was really about it or not, April was about it, and that's
Yeah.
what mattered.
Oh, yeah.
So.
It literally didn't matter what Will wanted.
No.
Because April is the type of person who's never been told no before.
Well, yeah, absolutely not.
So, flash forward to current day. Hannah emphasizes more than once, some money concerns since the baby's on the way, which, kind of gives another tick in the will column of like, oh, is it money? Who knows? Anyway, she
Right.
thinks about how this could have been the life April led. That's a quote that we kind of talked about before we started airing, but you know, April could have been the one who was pregnant with Will's child, alluding to the fact that they wouldn't have money issues since April's fucking loaded.
Yeah. Well, and so are Will's parents too, to an extent.
Well, their money's running out.
Their money's out, but at one point they have like the name, they have like
Yeah.
the history or whatever.
Which
Old
is-
money ties.
Isn't doing him enough. He's a like low end accountant who hates his life. So
Wasted that Oxford education.
I thought that was interesting because here accountants are like that's a
good
great job to
Yeah.
have. So I thought it was interesting that they were like, oh, he's wasting his education on being an accountant. I was like, that's a fucking 5-year
That's a
degree
great
here.
job. Yeah, I think they just meant like Will wanted to do more things. Like he wanted to make a
Yeah.
difference, and like he went to Oxford, Pelham, which is obviously, as you said, a fictional school, but apparently that's like the top of the top, the cream of the cream
Right.
that they're talking about. And so, like, just to be down on that level of like accountant, I guess, like that's what they were meaning.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know. But
Ugh.
so her old friend Emily calls, who she hasn't talked to in like 2 years. We learn Emily's moved back to Oxford for academia, and she sees Hugh occasionally for, you know, alumni and reunion events. But of course, April and Will don't go. I don't think either have been back. Well, so Hannah and Will haven't been back since April's murder, but well, Will did for college, but April hasn't been back literally since like the night of the murder. We learned that Ryan had a stroke, and Hannah and Will both feel kind of a lot of guilt for not keeping in contact with him. He's married and has 2 kids. There's a reporter that keeps calling her and emailing her, and we find out that's actually Ryan's friend from a newspaper they both worked at, which is why Emily's calling. She gets a call from the reporter, Grant, and
What? Grant?
Grant, yeah.
Is that how you say
Yeah.
that? Oh my lord.
I
I was
know.
saying like Gerant.
I had to look it up because I was like, ain't no way.
Grant?
Grant.
That sounds like, I don't know, like a noise you make or something.
I think
Okay.
I think it's like the British version of Grant.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, please continue.
So she gets the call from the reporter because he's been interviewing Neville and he thinks it's possible that Neville didn't do it. Of course. So he feels responsible to at least investigate in the wake of his death. Emily's calling to warn Hannah. Of course, Hannah freaks out because she's wondered every day for the past 10 years if she made a mistake putting Neville away, which is just like, roll my fucking eyes. Like,
Girl, if you were waiting that long, like, take some action. Why are you waiting on this reporter? Like, why are you putting yourself through that? I don't know. It just further
just-
my annoyance with Hannah.
why did the police not do their fucking jobs when
Well,
this
yeah,
happened?
like- So you're just gonna believe one girl who said that she saw a guy coming down a staircase and then be like, yep, sentence him to prison for the rest of his life where he dies. I don't know. Like, if you're really that beat up about it, Hannah, do something. Do something. Because 10 years is a long time to be sitting and being like, oh, did I make a mistake or did I get it right? Like, what?
It's like a little too late, babe.
It's a little too
dead.
late. Ugh.
But so she put Neville away essentially solely off of her account of seeing him come out of the stairs.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only evidence that anyone has on how this could, on who this murderer could be. And so they just agree that it's Neville.
Well, and the fact that she had reported him to authorities, like college authorities, about his behavior. But even then,
No, I mean, she only said it to Dr. Myers, and Dr. Myers didn't do anything about it.
no, he didn't do a fuck shit about it because
Yeah.
he's a man and is stupid.
Yeah.
So,
More on that.
more on that later.
So she tells Will about the phone call with Emily, and he immediately shuts down this line of thinking. He says, you know, Neville's dead. We should be happy. We're finally putting this to rest. Like, essentially, it's too late to do anything anyway.
Well, yeah, the man is dead.
Yeah, and they're like starting a family together. Like, let's be more concerned about like our finances. Maybe you shouldn't be getting that brownie with your meal because we only have like
And you
$10.
know, why did she have so much fucking indecision about that brownie? Girl, get the fucking brownie. It
I was
pissed me
really
off.
mad about
I was like, ugh. I was like, girl. And why did Ware put that in the book? It's not necessary.
I wrote it down in my notes because I was like, oh, money problems are gonna come out later. They never talked about money again.
As soon as people got shot, they were like, well, thumbs up. Like, we're good. No more stress. Also, things that never come up again. Her mother. Like, why was her?
You're so her mom.
Why?
Her mom was supposed to come into town and then never does.
Why were there passages and passages of her talking to her mom in the present about a visit that's supposed to happen?
That doesn't.
It never does happen. I was like, why even put that in? Just, girl, if you're going to talk about the mom and Hannah, which, do we even have a name for the mom? I don't think we do. See, why?
This
Why
could have
put
been
that
50
in?
pages shorter at least.
Put the mom in, just dropping her off at college, then leave it fucking there. Or don't put her in at all. I don't know. Because at that point, we're wasting pages and I'm wasting time. So
The only important thing that she really did was the like tell her about Neville. But like she could have left it there.
any other person in the book could have told her about
That's
Neville.
also true.
Will could have told her.
The news.
Her coworker could have told her. Literally any other person.
Yeah.
I think the reason why she told, or Ware had the mother tell Hannah is because she needed the mother to have a role in the book.
But why? She didn't need to be
Just
there.
leave it out. Just leave it out.
Anyway, we flash back again. We learn a little bit more about April. She's essentially the typical it girl, as Alex was talking about a minute ago, with a ton of hidden issues who makes you look and feel like an idiot. She likes doing pranks and then makes you feel stupid for being scared or, you know.
I just also feel like if the title of the book is The It Girl and you're portraying April as this way, like at least make it a little bit more interesting. Like, okay, there are it girls in people's lives, whatever. There are it boys, whatever the fuck you want to say. But when you're having like a character that supposedly like affects people's lives in this way where she just like walks into a room and like they can't tell her no and like she gets away with these like antics and things like that. It's like, okay, but we've seen this trope so many times before. This exact trope. Blonde hair, rich parents, terrible attitude, mean to people, has sex. Like, I don't know. It just is boring to me.
There wasn't anything special about April that made her different from other it girls.
Yeah. Facts.
Like there had to have been other it girls in Pelham.
Yep. Just one got murdered though.
She was a bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, that's essentially why I like.
Well, you don't deserve to die if you're a bitch, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, does anyone deserve to be strangled? No. But
Also, DNA.
yeah, come on. Okay, we'll get there later, but I have much to say
Yeah.
about the murder itself and the police investigation. Or lack thereof.
Yeah, that's more accurate. One quote that they use to describe April, specifically when they're talking about kind of these pranks, is that she's the perfect friend until she isn't, which I thought was very interesting.
First of all, the pranks she plays are ridiculously not proportionate to like
No!
no like normal human activity. Like I don't know. It's just crazy. Like first of all, you barely know your roommate. You just moved in together.
Yeah.
And you're gonna hang yourself out of your own window, putting yourself in danger and acting like you're dying to play a funny prank. Like
Fucking
no one's
insane.
laughing. No one thinks that's funny.
And she makes you feel stupid about it.
Yeah, she's like, oh my God, like, can't you just tell that it was a joke? Like, how about you make an actual funny joke? And then we can talk about what's funny or not. Like, people like that annoy the fuck out of me.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, you're clearly being a dickhead just to be a dickhead.
Yeah. She was.
And she was.
She was showing people that she could get away with literally anything.
Anything she wanted.
So Hannah is going to her first like tutorials with her professor, but she can't find the office. So his room is weirdly across the hall from hers.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't know why or in real life scenario that would ever fly.
Never. It would never happen.
No, because a professor living in like student dormitories.
Especially like one that's kind of close to your age.
Yeah,
Not a
I just
fucking
feel
chance.
and I feel like that was just frankly lazy writing.
Yeah.
She had to insert another possible suspect that was like a member of staff or a person of
Yeah.
higher authority, like the porter people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the specific term is, but
Porter.
the porters, someone in authority that was not students that could be a suspect. And the only way she could really think of putting that or inserting that character into the book is by having him live directly across the hallway.
Fucking weird.
Do something different.
Yeah. So she assumed that was his like office space, but it wasn't. So she had to ask one of the porters, who essentially like I would describe as like mailmen plus like
Security.
yeah, like they're just kind of the people who are always there, the staff that like is there to help you.
Like a front desk person
Yeah.
that also delivers mail and tackles people off of walls.
So she asks one of the porters, who ends up being Neville, and he takes her to the tutorial. During the hour tutorial, Dr. Myers asks, you know, who are you? And she kind of gives the normal, like, I'm this person. My mom did this. My dad did this. I grew up here. And then she, like, pauses and reassesses and says something to the effect of, like, she wants to prove that she belongs with these highfalutin, educated, posh people. Like, she feels really out of place and just, like, in a different universe, because she is, essentially.
Yep.
And when she gets out of the tutorial, the porter, Neville, is still there, which, yikes.
Big yikes. I
But-
don't know. It's just creepy.
Fucking weird, and they never explain it.
No.
Anyway, so he asks, you know, like, where do you want to go, or where are you going next? And she says the library, and he's like, okay, let me take you there. And she's like, fucking don't. Like, I know where the library is. Like, stop.
I don't know. If you're a man, especially an older man dealing with younger women, like, know your place.
And he's like 50.
Yeah. Like, you need to know that this girl, like, ask once. And if they say no, leave it at that.
Out.
Do not stand around this person. Do not keep asking them, harassing them. No. You asked, you were being polite. Sure, we'll give you
Yeah.
that credit. Then after that, dip out because you're not needed in that space anymore.
When you said no, like, just accept it.
That's just no. Yeah.
So later, she goes to get a letter, and he does that really fucking annoying thing where he, like, keeps, like, taking it out of her grasp.
Which is gross.
It's so gross.
It's gross. Like, when someone does that, they're trying to get you in closer proximity to that person. And it's like
a power move.
it's a power move, and it's just like a dumb fucking thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
just give me my mail, you old creepy fuck.
Because you should have had it in my pigeonhole anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, eventually she says, you know, will you give it to me, please? And he responds, all you needed to say was the magic word. I like polite little girls.
Ugh.
Vomitus.
Disgusting. Don't ever say that.
Don't ever say you like little girls.
If you are listening to this podcast, don't ever say those words together. Don't ever do it. Just say nothing. Say, here's your mail. Have a good day, if that. You can even just say nothing and hand them their mail and let everyone be on their way. And this is what's so hard about women who like face situations like this is because a lot of the time it starts out with little things. It starts out with gross comments. It starts out with weird power plays. It starts out with a little too close, a little too, like, you can't put your finger on it, but you just feel icky inside. But there's not like definite like rule breaking or like boundary crossing. So you're just left with this icky feeling.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it. And so you're just left feeling icky, which is why Hannah feels that she needs to like avoid the porter's lodge,
Yeah.
And like, if anyone is making you feel that way, like, you need to report them.
Oh, absolutely.
Period. I don't care if it is seemingly simple or seemingly nothing. How many times have true crime podcasts told people, like, be fucking aggressive, like,
Yeah.
be fucking, like, weird, and don't ever be polite?
Yeah. Don't
Like,
allow that to happen to you.
You don't have to be polite to people. Yeah. Like, if you are in an elevator by yourself and someone comes in, get off that elevator.
Yeah, if you don't feel like it, you don't need to be there.
You don't need to be there. There is a lot of, like, I don't know, social expectations of women, and it's, like, really freeing just to think that, like, you can say no, you can say, I don't have to answer that, you can leave the space. It's just freeing to know that. So if you're ever in an uncomfortable position, like Hannah is clearly here, do something about it.
That does bring up the question, though, like, it is very possible that he could have been, like, this murder doesn't happen or he doesn't get convicted and he does commit a crime.
Exactly.
So, you know, there is that potential that she is saving, like, other, like, future college girls from.
Yeah, even if not saving
creepy.
herself, she's protecting other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You shouldn't be an old man working your college students. Sorry. I mean, I'm not gonna...
Well, let's okay, hold on. That's like every professor.
No, yeah. That's like every old man ever. But I don't know. You just shouldn't be creeping up the space near college students. That's just, you shouldn't be doing it. Don't be weird and don't work in a role like that. That's all I gotta say.
All right. So I have a question here. What are your thoughts on our first introduction to Dr. Myers, as well as our first view into Neville's weird interactions with Hannah? We kind of discussed that, but do you have anything else you want to add?
I didn't like Dr. Myers. I thought he was pretentious. Like, I know it's
course.
like, I know it's Oxford, and I know that it's like the top college and they're all in there, but it just like rolled my eyes. Like, I don't know. You can tell that he like jerks off to the fact that he's like in that position.
Absolutely.
And it's another creepy old man that is
He's
like...
not old, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Is he not old?
He's supposed to be like 10 years older than them.
Okay.
So he's like 30 or...
I don't care. An old man in a position of power.
Gross.
Surrounding himself with young college women.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Retweet. So at this point, Hannah's feeling pretty settled in at school. It's probably like midway through the first semester. But two things are still making her super uncomfortable, which one, of course, is Neville. Fucking weirdo. And two is Will. So April and Will are all but dating. He's over all the time, and there's a lot of mornings where she knows that Will is not in April's room, but someone is.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. And then we go to the promising students party that Dr. Myers is throwing, and April crashes, which mortifies Hannah. Hannah's upset that April has everything, and why can't she just let Hannah have this, like, one thing to herself? Like, can I just go to this party by myself? You have every fucking thing, which I get.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that Hannah pointed out the ratio of girls to guys, which is 5-1.
Which is very important.
And then she just dismisses it as the demographic of English majors.
I feel like that's just her trying to like play it down for herself. I don't know. It just, the professor is being creepy because there's that girl named Ruby who's like in and out of his dormitory, his student dormitory, by the way,
Weird.
all the time, which is a whole nother can of worms because we find out later that he's married. And why the hell is he living in student dorms if he's married? And why the hell is he having all these young women over in his room if he's married? Why, even if he wasn't married, why?
Yeah.
It's just not okay. It's just weird. And you could tell immediately that, like, at Hannah's first tutorial with him, that he was like, oh, like, I see how hard you work or something like that. And it's like, do you really, or did you see, like, a pretty young woman? Like, it's just kind of like, wow. Gross feelings all around.
Hannah also points out that Dr. Myers spends the whole night with the 3 prettiest girls at the party.
Yup.
And asks them to get drinks in town, which Hannah and April kind of get into like a little argument about. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I don't think it's ever confirmed, but it's definitely alluded to that Dr. Myers and April are hooking up.
I assume that they did.
Yeah.
So.
And even if it was just for the point that he was a suspect, they for sure were fucking.
People be fucking.
Which is all fine if it's consensual, but because April wasn't his
and of
student.
a proper age. But I don't.
He was 30. It's fine.
But, like, I mean, yeah, proper age, but, like, I don't know. He's still a professor. He's living amongst the students. There should be no fucking involved. If you're a
He
professor.
should not be living with those students.
No,
That's
he
just
should not be
fucking
living in
weird.
the students. Like,
It would be fine if he was living off campus and they had a consensual relationship because she is not his student.
is that the rule?
I think you can fuck
That's
whoever
fine.
you want if we agree.
I meant, like, student code of conduct. Like, is that? I wasn't saying, like, morality-wise. Like,
Oh.
obviously, like, girl, get you some
prof.
Get you some prof with capital P. But, like, student code of conduct wise, like, they're in Oxford. Like, is that going to fly? I don't think so.
If people find out, but no one did. So.
It's playing a tough game.
I don't know. Is it great? No.
Obviously not, no.
I don't know. Just be careful with who y'all fuck.
Be smart about it.
So, current day. It's a rainy day. There's a guy at the bookstore who's been in the back for a while. He's the only one in the store, so she goes back to check on him. And it ends up being Garant, Ryan's friend, the reporter. And he, like, asks her to talk, and she's just like, oh my God, get out of here. Like, my coworkers don't know about this case and that I'm involved. So just email me and I'll get back to you. And he's like, okay. So Hannah tells Will about the reporter, and he's really pissed. On page 145, she says, he's a friend of Ryan's. I can't just tell him to go away. And Will says, you can and you will. And then this quote is kind of what I wanted to point out. She says, it's the will that does it. If he'd said should, Hannah probably would have nodded. But that will, there's an autocratic snap to it. Like, she's not his wife, but his employee, his servant. And it makes all of her hackles rise. So it's just where, like, again, trying to push in that, like, it's definitely will kind of thing. Like, everyone, when you're heated, says shit like that. Like,
yeah.
I've said it to my husband. He said it to me. Like, and you just are like, shit, I didn't mean it like that. I meant should. You know?
Right.
So it was stupid.
It was like a red herring. Like, the whole thing leading up to the end was just like red herring after red herring pointing to Will.
Yeah.
And I think later in the book, that's when it became more obvious. I was like, okay, well, it's clearly not him. Like, if she's laying it out that clearly,
that was
definitely not
my
it.
issue. Is that,
Yeah.
like, from the beginning, she laid it out to be Will, so I knew it wasn't going to be Will.
Yeah.
But they talk it out, of course, and it's fine. She gets the email from the reporter and decides that she has to meet him face to face, if nothing else but to convince him of Neville's guilt. But deep down, she also wants to hear him out because it is, like, all of her fears coming to the surface. So.
Right.
Flash back in time. After the first semester, Hannah sees Ryan at the train station and they bond over not being private school kids and how it's unfair that they can't just call their parents and pay more money and all their problems are solved. When Hannah gets to her room, April gives her a Christmas gift of, like, a really fancy lipstick. She was like, I knew it was really fancy because I didn't even know the brand.
I know. I was like, what brand is that?
I
Is that a
know.
made-up brand?
I've never heard.
Okay.
And it's the one that actually she still wears, like, to this day.
Which is sweet.
It is sweet.
I mean, April, we can say a lot about her, right? But I truly think that the friendship she felt towards Hannah was real.
Oh, yeah.
I think that Hannah was like a force of normalcy in April's life. And I don't know, I feel like the lipstick symbolized a lot. Like, I feel like the lipstick symbolized the beauty that April saw in Hannah, like maybe that Hannah didn't see in herself.
Yeah.
And I also think that there was like the potential, not even just looks wise, that April saw in Hannah, but it was like, look at what you could be type of thing. So I found that to be interesting.
Yeah, and afterwards, Hannah hugs her and tells her she loves her and that she missed her. And of course, April doesn't respond other than to, like, hug her a little bit tighter and say, let's go drinking.
Yeah, I mean, classic April, classic good girl.
And I think the beauty of their relationship is that it never specifies, but I don't think April had actual friends.
No, I mean, not in the context that, like, you and I would call friends.
Yeah.
Or, like, normal people would call friends.
Like, she didn't have a Hannah.
She did not have a Hannah, no. Mm-mm.
And so she liked him. But on their way to the bar, April and Hannah stop by the boys' room. They see that the window's open, and so they're probably smoking weed. And April pulls a pretty mean prank pretending to be the professor, smelling weed from their room. So once they open the door, Ryan's really fucking pissed because he flushed it down, like all of his weed down the toilet, and it's expensive, and he doesn't have a rich daddy that he, gets $100 a week from to buy him more weed. So they get in a huge fight, and the tension's like super intense and palpable. And he even wheels on Hannah saying, you should have known better. Like, we don't get a second chance if we're caught. So you shouldn't have let her, like, do this, which I agree with.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if you're seeing someone is set out to do something like that, like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you look up to her or, like, that person or, like, how much you want to be, like, a part of the joke or, like, be funny. It's not funny.
Or, like, just do, like, the one knock as the professor and then just, like, be like, just kidding.
Yeah. Like, tone it down.
Yeah. Like, don't, you heard the first flush and then you heard the second flush. Like, you knew it was the joint and the, like, bud or whatever.
Yeah.
They have. Like,
which, if you're a college student and you're smoking, like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It is. So April gives him the $60 for the weed that he bought, and he begrudgingly takes it. He doesn't want to, but he's like, you know what? I actually kind of need this. I would do it too.
Well, yeah.
She has
her
it.
fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has it to waste. As they walk to the bar, Will says to her, she's going to be the death of me. And Hannah says, but you love her, don't you? And he says, I do. And Hannah's heart breaks a little bit.
Tear.
So Hannah and April get in a fight because Hannah has to go back to the bar to finish her paper, and April doesn't want to go back to the bar because she's flirting with the cute bartender. When she gets back to her room, Hannah sees Neville there bringing them a package, and he's just like inside of their like room. And she freaks out because he isn't leaving. Like, she gets there and expects him to just like leave, and he just is like,
well, she asked him to leave.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
And he doesn't. So she like runs into her room and freaks out. And
I'm sorry, but at that point, I'm calling the cops.
absolutely.
I don't care what your role is at that college. I don't care what reason you're giving to be in my space like that. If I'm asking someone to leave and you're not leaving, immediate 911.
Or like, unless you are like a security person, but he's
even
dropping off.
then,
Yeah.
if you're, I don't know, if there's no reason for like a security or like an
'Cause
officer
it's, like,
to be there,
11.
yeah, like if there was no like emergency,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
What are you
Get
doing?
out.
Yeah.
And then 911.
So very weird. Then she hears knocking and she's freaking out more. She's thinking that he's come back. But then she hears Will's voice and she's like, oh, thank God. And she like goes to the door and he like sees that she's visibly freaking out and brings her to the couch, and she just sobs into his arms while he holds her. And of course, they make out.
Which I love. I mean, we saw it coming from a mile away, right?
But it's annoying because they're like together.
Yeah, I don't know. I love that shit. I was like eating it up. I don't know. You could tell Will's vibes in the moment. No man that has no interest in like romantic relations with you is gonna like sit around to be
For like 30 minutes while you're crying.
Yeah, like especially after he just left his girlfriend's room. Like no man is gonna sit around and listen to that. So we knew what was coming, and like I wanted Ware to like point out like who leaned into who first. I wanted that to be in there, but it wasn't in there. So it was kind of where they like fell together.
She specifies that it was like she doesn't know who came first. So
it was fate.
yeah, I thought it was very cute, and I like them being together, and also like
They're just more wholesome.
oh yeah, but also April like can't be mad because she's sleeping around with like half the college anyway.
Exactly. I mean, well, she can be mad because that's her best friend and roommate, but
Well,
she can't say much to Will because she is sleeping around.
She can be mad because she would be mad.
Yeah, anyone
She
would be
shouldn't
mad.
be mad.
Yeah, anyone would be mad, obviously.
I don't know.
But it's ironic because she too was just kind of. But
essentially, like, I don't give a fuck about anyone.
I think like at this point, April and Will's relationship was more of like April needing to own something.
Yeah.
And we see that later, like with the kiss, the aggressive kiss, like after the opening night and stuff. It was like ownership shit. And it's just gross. But that's kind of what I believe to be was April's viewpoint on why even she kept Will around.
Yeah. So this is like where I kind of start seeing of like, because obviously it's pointing towards Will as the murderer the whole time, but you know, what is the motive really?
Right.
This was kind of me thinking like, did he kill April because April wouldn't let them be together kind of thing?
At first I thought that.
You know, he wants to be with Hannah, but you know, killing your girlfriend at 19 to be with another girl.
Be real. Just be with that other girl.
Right.
Sorry, deal with the fallout. But no, I thought that at first, but then later I was thinking that he caught her having relations with another man. And then in his mind, it was like, okay, well, I want to be with Hannah anyway. And this bitch is cheating on me. Let me just solve like 2 problems with 1 murder.
Again, it's like, but just get out of the relationship.
Well, obviously that's what, but even in real life, like that's what you think about people who actually do get murdered for reasons like this. Like people don't, to the outside, people who are not murderers, it's like, okay, we'll just do the simple solution. But like these men, which it is a large majority of the time, it's men killing women. Sorry, it's facts. I think it's like 65% of homicides are due to like a partner and a male partner at that.
Oh yeah.
I'll need to double check that, but I believe that is the statistic. And the thing is, they do just kill these women for no reason other than that. And it's like, that's it.
Yep.
So I wouldn't, at that point in the book, I would not have been surprised if that's why Will had killed April as it was being pinned out. But like I said earlier, it was being so painfully clear that the murderer was Will that I was like, okay, well, that can't be him.
That can't be him, yeah. So we go back to present day. Hannah meets the reporter at a coffee shop, and he learns that Ryan confirmed that April was pregnant when she died.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
That was a good old twisteroo. So she freaks out and runs away and tells Will about the rumor, but he misunderstands it to think that she was pregnant with Neville's baby, not his, which I was like, that's so fucking weird to misunderstand it that way.
Why would you even think that? Why?
I don't know.
I mean, unless you just think that April was just literally giving it out to anybody.
For real.
But even then, like, really?
It was a weird thing to write. But she decides now she has to go talk to Ryan about it. So she doesn't tell Will that she's going. He opens the door to a surprise of Hannah being on his doorstep. And she's surprised to figure out that he's pretty much the same old Ryan. He's just in a wheelchair. She apologizes for not being there, and essentially he's like, it's a two-way street. I could have, reached out to you also.
Homeboy, you were hospitalized. Like,
Yeah.
It was shitty of Will and Hannah to not reach out.
Oh, it was.
Because
I think he was just trying to make them feel better.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I meant to say this earlier, but when we were first given the descriptions of like the characters in this book, it was very much giving The Breakfast Club.
Oh, interesting.
Did you get that vibe?
No.
But I did.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, like Will being like the hot homeboy,
Yeah.
Ryan being like the sporty type.
Yeah.
And then we have like the pretty girl and like the emo girl and like Breakfast Club.
Pretty much.
Just a British version.
No.
Yes. Please continue.
He confirms that he was sleeping with April, and he was never sure if that positive pregnancy test and the pigeonhole was a prank or not.
That's a lot of peas. Positive pregnancy test. And the pigeonhole was a prank.
Was a prank.
Oh God. Okay. Woo.
And she he texted her and was like, "Are you kidding?" And she was like, "Positively not."
Which was funny. I'll give her that. That was funny. I laughed at that.
The prank was not funny.
The prank was not fucking funny. If you're a woman, don't you ever do that to somebody. That is crazy.
Especially when you're sleeping around with literally half the college.
That is crazy behavior. That is some like Mari type shit.
So she tells Will she went to see Ryan, and he's of course mad that she's rehashing all of this. Like, she won't let fucking dead dogs die. That's not the quote, but that's fine.
Can't let him live. Can't let him die. He's already dead.
So the author at this point is just like really setting up Will. And like in between,
It's very obvious.
Yeah, and in between all of this, there's like this like sweet mushy stuff that she's like, oh, Will would never. And then she's like, but he did.
Which annoys me.
Yeah.
It goes back to the contrarian thing. Girl, make up your fucking mind, okay? It will save us a lot of pages if you just decided shit.
I know. So we go back in time. As the end of the term comes, everyone's preparing for exams, but April is instead preparing for her theater production. She is really nervous on opening night, and something weird's going on between her and Will. Hannah has been avoiding both Neville and Will all term, pretty much since the night that Neville was in her room and she kissed Will. But of course, they end up sitting next to each other, her and Will, at the theater production. April is magnificent in the play. Emily and Hannah walk back from the show together, and Hannah doesn't want to go in front of the Porter's Lodge because she wants to avoid Neville. So Emily shows her a way to climb the wall that Ryan taught her. Emily says she doesn't want to climb it, so she makes sure that Hannah's okay and then like walks around to the front. But as Hannah's climbing down, someone grabs her foot and she kicks them and runs away, but is tackled. So whoever it is, they're choking her with his forearm, like on her neck, and shoving her face in the gravel, and also has a boner. And then finally someone...
Which just is so disturbing.
So gross. But finally someone asks, what's going on, and the second Hannah can, she sprints away, and she sees that it's Neville. So...
It's disturbing. First of all, although we can't for sure say that Neville was waiting for Hannah, it's just like, what are you doing out there? What are you doing out there?
It's weird.
It's weird. And like, even if it wasn't Hannah and even if he wasn't waiting around, to like physically tackle a student to the ground is just disturbing. Like, what are you doing?
Like, you could tell, like, I understand at first, like, grabbing the ankle.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're an intruder. But then, like, once she's down, you can see that it's a college kid. Like, it's just someone who didn't go through the front.
Who lives there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I'm sure at some point, even though fuck-ass Dr. Myers at one point is like, well, according to your own admission, like, it was dark. So how could he tell, like, who it was? And how could you tell who it was? Like, I don't care. At some point, he knew it was Hannah. Or he knew it was a girl.
Yeah.
At some point. And to be, like, physically aroused by, like, violence, like, by being on top of someone, disturbing ass shit.
Yeah, and she said she was, like like seeing stars, like it was going black. Like he wasn't just like
holding her down.
He was like throat closing, strangulation.
And like if someone hadn't come up and seen that, what would have happened?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't really blame Hannah for being so scared of him. Yeah. One, even before this attack happened, and it is assault.
Absolutely.
She said later in the book, like, it took her a while to call it assault. No, it's fucking assault.
It is.
And it's sexual assault.
Yeah.
At that. I mean, it's physical assault and then turns into sexual assault. But that is behavior that will most likely escalate. And
absolutely.
It's just, I don't blame Hannah. There we go. I don't blame Hannah for being so scared of Neville even before this assault happened. I don't blame her for him being the first person her mind turns to when April is murdered. Absolutely
not. And like I was saying, it could have, if she hadn't put him in jail for a crime that he didn't commit, sure. You know, he could have escalated to another student later.
Yep.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. And I think the reason why he stuck so hard on Hannah at first is because she was trying to do her best to be polite. And I think that's where a lot of women get in trouble. Like I said, don't be fucking polite.
Well, and he keeps pushing her.
Yeah.
To like be near him.
He definitely sought her out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next morning she wakes up. She's still in her clothes she was wearing from that last night, you know, scraped and bruised, and she showers. And she knows that someone's in April's room, so she goes straight down to breakfast to avoid that situation because she was like, I can't bear it to see if it's Will, and I can't bear it to see if it's not Will. So
Right.
we're just going down. So Hugh and Emily see her and ask her about, the scrapes on her face because her face was literally shoved into gravel. And Emily forces her to go report it. So another...
Rightfully so.
Yeah, of course. Emily actually is probably my favorite character.
I like Emily.
And one quote that I liked a lot, and I can't remember the exact context, like what question was asked before this, but I think it was something to the effect of like, are you going to report this? And this is a quote. But Emily was shaking her head, and Hannah knew that she didn't have to finish the sentence, that somehow Emily, like all women who'd ever been alone and afraid at night, understood the strange mix of guilt, disgust, and self-hatred she was experiencing and knew exactly how she was feeling, which is on page 212.
Which is just so sad because as a victim of these attacks or these situations, like, you're physically hurt, you're emotionally hurt, and the person you should be blaming is the attacker, right? And yet there's like this shame that like falls upon you as a victim, which just makes it so much worse because no one deserves that type of situation. And to like, you suffered through the attack and then you're going to make yourself suffer again by beating yourself up about it. It just makes me so sad.
And I mean, like, anytime I would walk home from the library, I would call Shelby.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just be on the phone. Like,
better safe than sorry.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have to.
No, we should not have to do that.
And so I get what she's saying is that you feel all of these things and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Which is the hardest part.
I just think that's something that men will never understand. Mm-mm. They don't have to go about this world thinking the same thoughts that women have to think.
Yeah.
Just to live, like just to go about their day. And It's sad.
It is. So Emily makes her tell her professor, and of course Dr. Myers is an asshat about it. He's casting doubt on her story, like Alex was saying, it's dark, how could you be sure? And just not believing her. So Dr. Myers asks her if she wants this to be investigated, which means he'd have to talk to Neville, and she essentially says, let me think about it, and then just never answers him.
Which, boo. If someone approaches you about that, that is not the way to handle that at all.
No, all of that was so wrong.
Yeah. And like, you're putting the blame on the victim.
Yeah. And they should have just gone straight to the master.
Yep.
Or
even the police.
Yeah.
Like, get someone outside of Oxford involved.
Anyone.
Who doesn't have, like, a stake in the game or whatever.
Yeah. So later, April and Will get into a fight because he's going home to see his sick mom on her birthday, and he won't be there for April's final show. Which, roll my fucking eyes. Hannah hears the whole fight because she's in the common room studying, and, after Will leaves and April and Hannah are talking, she says, I have something to help you study, and brings out some pills. Which, what the fuck?
Just random. Just random. That came from literally nowhere.
Yeah, I literally put in my notes, like, this is the first time we're hearing about this, and we're, like, more than halfway through.
Like, I'm sorry, but if someone has, like, an addiction to pills, it would have been brought up before now. Like, April would have offered it to her much sooner, and it was also a random characteristic to throw on April, too. I just felt like she needed something to connect April to Hugh.
Well, and it was also, yes, and also she added, like, an eating disorder that was mentioned once and then never again. Like,
how many disorders can one girl have?
Right.
Like, I know she's the it girl, but, like, you're playing into the tropes of, like, been there, done that, it girl tropes.
And never expanded on.
And never explained it, never connected it back to, like, the story. Just random.
It's super weird. And so she's, of course, really upset that Will won't be at the final show. And to make April feel better, they throw an after party after her final show. April hams up this, like, not surprise party, and she stays in costume for a little bit while a couple others go change. But the people that are at this party are Ryan, Hugh, April, and Hannah, and a couple other people. Emily ends up not being able to, She's studying in the library with friends, and Will is at home with his family. The bar is closing. April left the change a while ago and hasn't been back, so Hannah and Hugh, go back to make sure that she's okay. She sees Neville leave the stairwell, and that's the only person to go in or out. She goes up the stairs, the door's cracked open, and she sees April laying there with her wig on the carpet, and she screams. So this whole part is now, the after. She decides that she has to meet with Hugh. He might remember something that she doesn't. And when she meets him again on page 254, she describes him as, he always had an air of someone who was playing at being the quintessential student he had seen in films. So he's always kind of like fitting himself into what you think he should be. So if he's a doctor, he plays the doctor. If he's a student, he plays the student. So Hugh thinks that Neville thought April was Hannah because of the wig.
Oh, because of the hair.
Because of the hair, yeah.
Gotcha.
So she has this like brown wig on. So Neville thinks it's Hannah.
Well, that's what Hugh's choosing to tell Hannah.
Yes, in this. So this is Hugh's story that she's giving Hannah when she goes and asks them about it.
Okay.
And he says he gives mouth to mouth to her. Hannah was screaming and he thought that she was going to faint. So he asked her to go call the cops and like stay in the hallway. Through their conversation, Hugh ends up admitting that he doesn't even like April because she was pretty cruel. And this is when we learn about the prank that he did on Emily, which was sending her a letter saying her grades were under investigation for potentially cheating with like the letterhead and everything. It's really fucking shitty.
It is shitty.
So Hugh says that he thinks that
April was giving Ryan an ultimatum.
Yes, April was giving Ryan an ultimatum between April and Emily, and he chose Emily, so he did the pregnancy prank. So if this is the correct line of thinking, Hannah is like extending it to say, he chose Emily, so I'm going to take it out on Emily, and does the prank.
Right. Okay.
Of the cheating. I wrote that very weird. Which is why we find out Emily doesn't go
to the closing night.
To the closing night because she is mad about the prank that April
pulled. And rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the thing. April always takes it too far. With everything she does, she takes it too far. Not just her pranks. Every action, everything that she does it to the maximum and then some. And it's like, I don't know. Is that necessary? No, it's not.
No. So Hannah meets again with the reporter who has someone who has more information about the autopsy. Her name is November, and surprise, she looks just like April. And surprise, they're sisters. Which
surprise,
are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Her name's November.
Roll my eyes. I do love that name.
It's a fantastic name if your sister's name isn't April.
Yeah, but I like it.
No, I love it.
No, I know. It's just like, well, and I don't know. Why is November even part of this? To be honest, because her role, like Hannah would have gotten to the conclusion that she needed to go back to Oxford eventually anyway. So why is November even part of it? I'm sorry. Why?
Just to remind her of what April looks like.
To have a new April?
Yeah. So November was around like 10 or 11, I think, when the murder happened. And she remembered hearing that April was pregnant or recently pregnant, and they never found out who the dad was. She was also taking pills to stay up and study at night while she rehearsed for her play during the day. They finally have this like weird realization that it must be Dr. Myers, who was the murderer. But I was like reading this and I was like, there's still a quarter of this book left. Like, obviously it's not him.
Yep.
But they decide to go to Oxford and talk to him. She's like so frantic from this that she passes out. November takes her to the doctor. They get meds for her blood pressure, but she refuses to take it, which I thought was a real weird fucking stance to have.
I know. I was like, girl, just take the medicine. What do you mean? Like, this is your baby.
So she calls her work, tells them about this, and they're like, you must take the week off. And she's like, I will take the week off, but I'm not going to relax. I'm going to go to Oxford
I'm going to play Miss Investigator and
with my dead best friend's sister.
I loved when Will was like pregnant Miss Marple. I was like, that's literally what she is. Like, except less
Funny.
less funny, less straightforward, less confident.
Yeah. So, of course, Will doesn't want her to go, but allows it since she will be with November and Emily.
I will say that's the only dislike I have about Will was how controlling he seemed over Hannah.
He just didn't want her to go.
What, traipsing about
When she's pregnant with his
which
child.
I understand.
First child.
I understand. And I think it's sweet that he's so concerned about their baby. Like, I truly do. But it was when he was like condescending her about like her choices. I didn't like that.
But it just, like, everyone says shitty things.
No, I know. I agree. But I'm saying like
Say
it better. Say it better.
The
Don't be
author
condescending.
just only put it in to make you doubt him.
Yeah.
Like,
facts.
you know he didn't actually say any of it that way.
Well, it's because he's a fictional character. So
Well,
no,
true.
he didn't say it like
You
that.
are correct. He said nothing. I was just thrown back into Sadie telling her
I just like slumped in this chair.
video
Like, I
baby.
can't.
It doesn't matter. She's not real.
Why did Zevin put that in the book? It was so existential and for what? It just made me
I
sad.
loved it.
Don't worry, you're not real. Damn. Like, what?
Okay. November upgrades her room at Oxford without telling her, and the conversation they have about this reminds me like of a conversation that her and April would have, which I think is sweet. November always wanted to come visit April, so she's glad that she's doing it now with someone who knew her. They meet Emily for dinner, and she ends up explaining why they are really there, investigating Dr. Myers. They get a little heated, but it's resolved. She tells them about Dr. Myers, that he was married even when they were at Pelham, which was 10 years ago. The weird thing was that his wife was abroad, and so that's why he was living on campus, but still fucking
But
weird.
even then,
No.
you're a professor. Go
Don't
get
live
your
on
own
campus, no.
living situation.
Dr. Myers ends up being the one to do the tour. They found out he wasn't even in Oxford at the time. He was presenting at a conference in Cambridge, and that just like ends that.
Which, of course, just cinches it up so nicely. And again, I have to ask, why even paint him as a suspect then? Like, why even have his character in the book? And again,
Because
it's just
she
because she
needed
needed
other-
another
yeah.
suspect. Like, roll my eyes. Okay.
So she gets into a fight with Will, and she's so furious at him at this point. And I think it's because she thinks Will has something to do with it, and she just doesn't know how to process that. She's thinking now that, you know, someone didn't take the stairs to leave, like how April pranked her and used the window. And I thought this was a really interesting quote that she used with Will. It says, "It's the worst feeling in the world to be afraid and to have the person you love tell you that it's all in your head."
Yeah, I mean, gaslighting to the extent.
Yeah,
if
for
that's
real.
what it was. Like, and that's what she
That's
was
what she
thinking
thinks.
yeah.
So.
Which it is terrifying.
So she's up all night tossing and turning. She texts Will an apology, and he apologizes in return, but she makes the whole big deal about how like he's typing and then not typing, then typing, then not typing. And it's like, because it's 2 a.m. and he doesn't, just get over it.
Go to bed. Go to bed, girl. That's another thing that bothered me. They're texting like they're not married. Like they're like immature. And it
Yeah.
just bothered me. I was like, oh my God.
So this is also a really good quote that I liked, especially after consuming a ton of true crime. I kind of got to a point where I was like, should I be listening to this kind of stuff? Or like, should I be helping other people profit off of this? But this is what she says. "How dare they, the journalists, the public, the vultures, who have picked over this case for years like they care, like they have a right to the truth just as much as Hannah does. They've stripped April of her identity, of her uniqueness, of everything that made her real and compelling and fascinating. They've reduced her to a cardboard cutout of a girl in a series of Instagram pictures. The perfect victim, in fact. And you can find that on page 339.
Yeah, I mean, it's facts. Like, obviously, as consumers, like, I've listened to true crime, you've listened to true crime of this content. Like, it's really easy to separate yourself as the listener and from the people who actually experienced this event or this story. And it's because we are consuming it as, like, a story being told. It's a form of entertainment. We don't really stop to think about, like, oh, like, these people were alive, have families, had a life, that type of thing.
Like, there are people living.
Like us. They're like us.
Well, right. And there are people living who experienced their loss.
Yep.
And, like, we're just listening to it as, like, a fun little...
But that was their life.
Right.
Right. And they are subjected to hearing about these podcasts and these shows and these segments. And it's like, for them, that must be living hell.
Yeah. You can say a lot about Ware, but I do think that she does try to make that point.
Which I appreciate.
Yeah. And, you know, every time, you know, Hannah says every time a podcast starts, there's a renewed interest. Every time there's a new show, there's renewed interest, and people start coming back to her with requests and stuff. So,
which is like, when I think about like civilian crime investigators, I'm like, sit down. It's none of your business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing if like you listen to the podcast or you watch the show or you have a fascinated interest in that case. Great. Do something else than trying to go to hunt these people down to their where they lived. They've gone through enough. Don't be doing that.
Yeah.
And it's hindering their lives, but it's also hindering the actual investigation.
Yeah.
By police, by officials that is going on. So don't do that.
I will say, you know, crimes have been solved that way, but
right, but from at home, not from like being up in everyone's business.
Yeah. Just
be smart. Be smart about it.
So on the train back, she's on a call with Hugh, and he tells her, you know, stop digging, Hannah. Like, you're going to not like what you hear. And she's like, what the fuck does that mean? And he's like, I heard Will through the wall at 2 a.m. when he should have been back home.
Roll my eyes.
Right. So she's freaking out, and Will surprises her at the train station. And then the baby kicks, and he he feels it. She puts his hand on the belly. And she, just completely forgets about any doubt that she ever had. I was literally put, roll my eye emoji.
Which, I mean, I've never been, so in love with someone and, carrying their child that, I've forgotten that they could be a murderer within that second. I've never been in that situation.
Can't say I
Can't
either.
say that I've been in that situation. But I just don't find it really realistic at all. You're sitting on this train home and
convinced he murdered.
Completely convinced. And my thing about that was why is she so easily trusting of Hugh? Why did she not take a second to be interesting? Why have you not mentioned this before now?
Well, and it seems like this is the second time he's pointed her to a different.
He keeps flip-flopping between different people because it hasn't always been Will. And why isn't she stopping to think, well, why did he even mention Emily in the first place if he heard Will
exactly
the night of the murder? Why is she not stopping to think?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Just because a baby kicks,
2020.
Just because a baby kicks and y'all are having a happy moment doesn't wipe the fact that you could have been a killer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's fucking wild.
I'd be like, get your hand on my stomach.
Don't fucking touch me, psychopath. So while Will is out, she calls Ryan to ask if she saw or heard Will that night. And he doesn't really confirm anything, but of course she hangs up, turns around, and Will's right there. And I'm really pissed at this point because I'm like, all right, we're getting close to the end. Will had to have done it. Could we have not been a little bit more creative with this killer?
Yep.
Yep. And so he's like, you have something you need to ask me? And she's like, no. And he's like, come on, ask me. She's like, did you kill her? And he says, what do you think? And then laughs. Which, isn't... We don't ever talk about that again.
Okay. If someone is confronting you about whether you're a possible murderer, do not laugh. I'm sorry. But, Okay, and this is what frustrates me about this book, because if Will was actually the man that he was painted to be,
He is most of the time in
he
the
is
book.
most of the time, ain't no way he says some shit like that.
No.
Ain't no way he laughs and says some shit like that. Sorry. But apparently it's necessary for the story to continue.
Which is, I don't understand.
I don't get it.
If he didn't laugh, we would have been fine. But he did. And so she runs away. Her phone's broken. Her screen doesn't work. She gets a cab and she's like, what the fuck am I going to do? And he's fucking running after her, which not great. Don't do that.
Not a great situation all around.
So she ends up going to Hughes, who takes care of her, lets her take a bath, takes a nap before they go to the police. So Hugh wakes her up and takes her to the police, but she's slowly realizing that not taking her to the police. They're in the middle of nowhere.
And she's been drugged.
Multiple times.
Homegirl.
She's like, I taste something acidic in my mouth.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Why are you bathing at this man's house? Why are you...
I think he was trying to, like, drown her. Like, so that she would, like, pass out. She had the drugs.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It's just the fact, like, why are you, like, bathing at this man's house? Why are you, like, just assuming that you took a long-ass nap and awaking naked and be like, okay, let's go to the police station? No.
Well, she was naked when she fell asleep.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, she was just in the towel.
But still,
It's
I don't know.
fucking weird, yeah.
It's weird, like, why are you continuing to, like, not put the puzzle pieces together?
Great question.
We wouldn't have a story if she did, so. And that's why.
Yeah. So she's freaking out. Again, her phone doesn't work, but it does work. It just, the screen doesn't. So she, like...
So funny to me. I'm sorry. But, like, I don't know. I just feel like when Ware set out to write this book, she was like, what pieces do I need to make this work, this scenario? I feel like she wrote the ending of the book first, and then she was like, okay, well, now we write the rest of the book. Like,
I think she was just like, I need more money.
Yeah.
Let's write a real shit
which,
book.
get your bag, girl. Get your bag. Like, seriously.
I bought it.
If we bought it, we're covering it. Like, if I could publish any book that I wrote, hell yeah. Like,
oh, yeah.
Get your bag, girl. But, like, what the hell? Like, I'm sorry. Just, like, you can't. It needs to be something more substantial than that. Like, she can't have a phone that's broken but still miraculously works. And, like,
and
then she knows that Will's on the phone because
it's
heating up.
There's not a chance. So that does actually happen, but there's not a chance she would have noticed it. And there's not a chance that he would have heard anything through her pocket.
No. And, like, I'm sorry, but if Hugh laid out this, like, elaborate plan and kept it under wraps for years and years and years, ain't no way he's not noticing her and her language and what the fuck she's saying.
Yeah, she goes, hey, Hugh, when we get back from the police station, do you think I should call Will? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
I thought she wrote that in because I thought she was trying to, like, make Hugh's car activate. She was trying to make his, like, in-car Siri work.
Oh my god.
And then Will would just be over the speakers. And, like,
that would have been worse. That
Hey, Will. So I'm in the car with you.
We're fine. I'm going to the police to report you.
I literally thought that's what she was trying to say it was, but then I was
funny.
like, oh, it's her phone. Okay.
And she's like, huh, the Sparkling Bar. That's a pretty name. Like, whatever drives by. I'm like, are you fucking dumb?
I'm sorry, but if I was trying to carry out an additional murderer, like, I would not be letting that slide. I'm sorry. We'd be, like, gagging you or, like, something like that. Like, why is he just letting her ramble on in the backseat?
And he, like, so they pull up to the beach that Will takes her on their first date and is like, this is a perfect place for a suicide. And she's like, hey, Will, what are we doing? And he's like, oh, fuck, I guess I can't keep the charade up anymore. It's like, that passed like an hour ago. When we didn't make it to the police station in the 5 minutes it takes to get to the police station.
This whole thing wore me the fuck out. Like, and also just, why did Ware feel the need to slip in that he was the one that suggested that spot to Will when he came up to Scotland for her? And that Will said specifically to make it a cheap place? I was like, why? Why are we still painting Will as the villain? Like,
Will has been through the ringer. Like, let him rest.
I don't know. It just wore me out. I was like, ugh.
And so, the surprise twist.
Surprise.
Which, okay. So Hugh says the whole fucking story of how he did it. Or lets Hannah walk him through. And
it's funny because he literally was like, well, I'm not going to reveal my plan.
Exactly. She goes, I just want to know why. And he's like, I'm not going to fucking tell you that.
But homeboy, you literally are, and you just did. So, like, again, why put that in there? I don't understand. He's such, like, a goofy murderer.
He really is. And so what we find out is April was doing a prank. She was pranking Hannah
already like
on being dead. And so when she got up there, April was a fucking live, like 100% alive. She was faking death. She was just gonna look like an idiot when she went and woke up the master and told him my roommate's dead.
Which is so fucked up.
So fucked up.
So fucked up.
Because she's drunk.
Yeah.
So it's just looking like a stupid drunk girl is coming in. Anyway. So she's freaking out. She's in the stairwell calling police. And Hugh's just like, hey, stay out there. You don't need to come in here. It's a crime scene.
Which, what the absolute fuck?
And then strangles her.
I was like, in what scenario in real life would someone let that fly? You're the only person in vicinity of this murdered girl, and I'm putting on air quotations, and you're telling everyone to not come in, including the police. What? And why is the police like letting that fly?
Well, I think what happened was he strangled her, which also she would have been kicking.
Yeah,
if she was fully
fought.
alive.
Yeah.
It takes like 7 minutes to strangle a full-grown person.
Yeah.
She would not have just like laid there.
Right.
But then after it happened, he leaves and then the police come.
Oh, okay.
Is what's supposed to happen. But fingerprints?
Still.
Not a single fingerprint on her. All of it's fucking wild.
It's just crazy that she laid it out like that. I was like, girl.
It doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense because she laid it out that way, but it doesn't make sense in the broader picture. I'm like
in real life, none of this would have
happened.
Yeah.
None of this would have happened.
And so she's trying to stall her death. She's on this, hill that she's going to be forced to jump off of. But alas, is what I wrote. Will shows up and it's just too easy. Hugh's shoulders are shaking and she's like, oh, he's scared. And then she's like, oh, fuck, he's laughing because they just made it way too easy. Will's first girlfriend dies and now his wife's poking around the murder. So he shot and killed her and then killed himself. There we go. But of course they get into an altercation and then Will goes limp and there's blood. So I turned the page to this next chapter called The End. And I was furious. I was like, we did not go through this entire book for Will to die.
I really thought he had. And I was like, this is the worst book I've ever read.
I was about to give it a 1 star.
I was about to give it no stars because I was like,
furious.
I'm sorry. You can't lay out the events so perfectly. And so like, and I'm not saying like perfectly in like a good way. I'm saying like she had to do that to make some sort of semblance of a story. But I'm saying like you can't do all that and then not have the husband survive. Like, I'm sorry.
It was wild. But it ended up being Hugh's
Surprise,
funeral.
surprise.
And thankfully, Will was just in the hospital for like weeks. And the mom still didn't come.
And the mom was never seen again.
So she's on the phone. The next chapter is called New Beginnings. This is the last chapter. Will is still in the hospital. He got shot in the side. He'll be fine. And she's on the phone with November now, and they're figuring out Hugh's why. Ultimately, so I actually do kind of feel stupid that I didn't put this together earlier. I thought GP was like...
General practitioner?
Yeah, I was thinking GP was their like Senate.
Oh.
Because I know they're called something like that.
Yeah.
And so I, like, in my mind, I was like, why would this senator have a prescription pad?
MP. That's what you're thinking of.
Okay. And then it, like, when I was reading that, I was like, oh, this would have clicked a lot sooner if I realized that. But, so he stole prescription pads from his dad. And that's how April was getting these drugs. Hugh also got into Pelham, the best medical college at Oxford, by having someone else take his medical exam.
Via April.
So April knows that he essentially cheated his way into school and that he's stealing his dad's medicine or prescription pads. So it doesn't just put him in jeopardy, it also puts his parents in jeopardy.
Yep. So he has to do whatever the fuck April says, and he has to put up with her bullshit.
Yeah, because the whole time, she is such a dick to him.
It's ridiculous.
Like, honestly, not surprised he killed her.
I mean...
I said it from the beginning. I thought it was him.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, he was treated literally like a pack mule, like just a garbage can.
And it makes me mad that no one else in the Fred group said something.
Exactly.
Why are you just letting this person be shit on?
Especially
all day,
Will.
every day? Yeah, like that's supposed to be your best friend. And your girlfriend is like constantly, as they say, like taking a piss on him.
Yeah.
Like.
Not a chance.
I'm sorry.
Wouldn't tolerate that.
No.
So he has to kill April to get out of this.
Has to kill her, I guess. Just has to end her life.
Which is fucking wild. But the reporter, Garant, emails her and says, I'm starting a podcast. I want you to be on it. And she says, I'm not changing my mind. I have been talking about this fucking case for 10 years now, and obviously what I have to say is wrong. So now it's your story. Like, it is Neville's story, and it is Garant's story. Like, you know it. I'm giving you that. And that's how we end.
Roll my eyes.
Yep.
God. I wish we had not picked this book.
I know,
but
I feel really
Meagan
bad.
and I were talking about earlier, like, we don't know if a book is going to be good or bad until we read it. And so that's just part of it. And I do want to cover books that we don't like. So this is just one of them.
I'm sorry it happened.
Sorry, Ruth Ware. Like,
I'm sorry it had to happen so early in the podcast. That is my bad.
It's good, though. No, it's good. I like it.
It was a doozy. I didn't hate reading it, but I wish it wasn't, like, portrayed so, like, matter-of-factly. Like, if this was more of a cozy crime novel, I could have gotten behind it, but it didn't feel cozy.
It made you feel like it was going to be an excellent page-turner thriller, and it was not.
Yeah. So, Alex, what do you want to rate this book?
2 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere between a 2 and a 3.
Yeah.
So I think we'll go with a 2.5. It was an average book. It wasn't great.
A very average book. I feel like if I had picked this up when I was like 12, I would have been like, oh my God, this is great. Not even like the best book I've ever read, but this is like great.
Yeah.
Because at that point I hadn't consumed enough content to really compare it to anything.
Yeah.
I felt the story was tired out.
Yeah.
I feel like the tropes were tired out. The writing and the story and the mystery were not well written enough for me to be like thoroughly invested in what actually happened.
Yeah.
And it was laid out too perfectly to the fact that like We knew exactly what was going to happen by the time it did happen. And that is not what you want in a mystery. That is not what you want in a thriller.
Yeah, so I've read 2 others of Ware's writings, and I felt both of them also were pretty average. I did read One by One, and I do think that was my favorite one so far. And then I also read The Woman in Cabin 10, which was about this level. So, you know, she has a wide range of books. She is an international #1 bestseller. So she's good for a reason. You know, people like her
seem
stuff.
to enjoy her. So, I mean, all the power to her.
Yeah.
We just simply didn't like this book.
Yeah. If you like this, I'm so happy. Like, I'm glad.
Right.
I want you to, because I feel really bad that I picked a book I didn't like.
No, Meagan, you do not need to feel bad. It's just one of those things. Like, every book we read, we're not going to love. Yeah. And the thing is, people like what they like and people dislike what they dislike. And we've talked about that before. We've said that on this podcast before. Yeah. And if this is something that you think you'd really like, go for it. Yeah. There's no harm. If you have the time and the want to read something like this, go for it. Yeah. Will we be reading it again? No.
Nope.
No, absolutely not.
So, do you recommend?
No, I do not recommend it. I don't recommend this for seasoned readers. I don't recommend this for baby readers. I don't recommend this as like a leisure book. I don't recommend this as like an airplane book. None of that. Don't read it.
I want you to read it. But if you don't want to read it, don't read it. Yeah. I also, instead of this book, I have another recommendation. The reason why I actually bought this book from Book of the Month is because it reminded me of one of my favorite books from 2022, which is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. Her writing is so thought out and so, like, you hate the characters so deeply. Like, you feel something, and with these characters, you just didn't. In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife is the same kind of thing, but it's based in America. They're coming back for their 10-year reunion, and the main character is like, I was the drab, stupid nobody, and at this 10-year reunion, I have to prove that I am, like, the queen bee. At the same time, they confront their friend group's 8 girls murder. So, if you want that, I definitely recommend In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife. It was like 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good, and I was hoping that this book would be a little bit more like that. So, unfortunately, it wasn't. But
and that's okay.
Yeah, you live and you learn.
You live and you learn. You read books that are just okay, and that's okay.
Not everyone can be a 5-star. That's what makes a 5-star a 5-star.
And I'd be stingy with those 5 stars. So
yeah, I think I'm somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
I give a lot of 5 stars, but I also read a lot of good books.
Yeah, facts. And you like that.
Yeah. And also, like, at the end of the day, for me, it's hard to rate something because, like, I view all writing as a piece of work, as a piece of art. Like,
I agree.
Ware sat down and spent hours going over
creating
this
novel.
Yeah. And it's something that she loved and that she wanted to publish. And so I love it because she loved it, you know?
I will always have respect for the novel for that very reason.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I have to like it?
No.
But no matter what, like you say, I will have that level of respect.
Right.
For the novel.
So just because we rate something like a 1-star, 2-star, whatever, doesn't mean that we don't
appreciate the effort and time it took.
Exactly. So I hope you join us for next week's book. Next week's episode is Happy Place by Emily Henry.
Whoop whoop. Our
first romance of the season.
Yay, I'm excited.
Me too. You can email us at goatpod@gmail.com with suggestions or book recommendations. You can check us out on our social media, which is @goatpod on Instagram. Feel free to follow my personal bookstagram at @peas_reads and both of us on Goodreads.
Thank you so much for listening and taking this journey with us.
It's a wild, crazy one.
Roller coaster, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. This has been
All the Good Ones
Are Taken.